She cheated with my best friend, then betrayed me by claiming I stole $200, $0 in our divorce. Turns out she was secretly draining our joint account while I was trusting her, and now she's suing me for half the house I paid for a loan. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be a complete nightmare. Honestly, I thought we had a good thing going, married for 5 years, building a life, trusting each other. At least I thought I did. But then, one day, everything just shattered in a way I never saw coming. It started with small signs, missing money, weird texts, late nights that she brushed off like they were nothing. I brushed it aside at first. You know how it is, busy with work, trying to keep things afloat, thinking maybe I was just imagining things. But then the cracks got bigger. She started acting more distant, colder even, and I noticed her phone was glued to her hand more than usual. She'd hide it when I entered the room, and her excuses about being busy with work and stress just didn't add up anymore. It all came crashing down one night when I decided to check our bank account, something I rarely did, honestly. I'd always trusted Lisa with our money, but lately I'd been feeling like something was off. I logged in just to see if everything checked out, and what I found froze me in place. There in our account history were transfers I didn't recognize, small amounts at first, then suddenly hundreds of dollars gone almost every day. I thought maybe it was a mistake or an error, but then I saw the name attached to one of the transfers, Jason. That was her, the guy she always said was just a friend. But I had a gut feeling that it was more than that. The more I looked, the worse it got. I found texts, flirty, explicit messages between her and Jason, talking about meeting up, sharing secrets, and even discussing sex like they were teenagers. My stomach sank every time I read them. She told me she was working late, going to the gym or meeting her sister. Meanwhile, she was sneaking around with him, apparently for months. I couldn't believe it. How could I have missed all of this? How could I have been so blind to her lies? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind raced, trying to process what I was seeing. I wasn't just betrayed emotionally. I was betrayed financially, too. She was draining our joint account, and I had no idea. That's when I decided I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I needed to confront her. I waited until she got home from work that evening, heart pounding, hands trembling. I had the evidence spread out on my laptop screen and her phone in my hand. When she walked in, she immediately sensed something was wrong. Her face was tight, her eyes darting around. I told her I knew everything, that I'd seen the messages, the withdrawals, the lies. Her face twisted into this bitchy sneer, and she started lying right away. Said I was crazy, that I was paranoid, that Jason was just a friend and the money. She claimed I was imagining things, that I was just jealous because I was insecure, but I wasn't having any of it. I showed her the proof, the receipts, the texts. Her excuses just got more ridiculous. She said she was stressed, that Jason was just helping her with work stuff, that the money was for some business idea she'd been brainstorming. Yeah, right. I could see right through her lies. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. I felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and betrayal. I never thought my wife, the woman I loved and trusted, would do something so cruel. I thought about everything we built, our home, our life, the trust I'd placed in her, and it all felt like it was crumbling in that moment. I didn't know what to say or do, just stood there stunned, watching her spin her web of lies. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything I'd discovered, trying to make sense of it. The woman I'd married was no longer the woman I thought I knew. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and furious. All I could think about was how she had lied to me, stolen from us, and now she was trying to pretend none of it mattered. I knew this wasn't just about the money or the affair. It was about respect, honesty, and the fact that I'd been played for a fool. I sat in the dark, trying to figure out my next move, knowing deep down that my life was about to change forever. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. The weight of everything from the night before was heavy on my chest. I kept going over the evidence I had gathered, trying to piece together how I missed all the signs for so long. Lisa was still asleep, probably exhausted from her lies and her guilt, but I knew I couldn't stay passive. I had to figure out what to do next, how to confront her, how to protect myself, and what this meant for our future. I decided to dig a little deeper. I pulled out my laptop again, going through our bank statements in detail. The withdrawals were steady every day, sometimes multiple times a day. It was clear she was systematically draining our account. And then I found something else, an email from her bank, a notice about a large transfer that I hadn't seen before. It was a wire transfer of $50, $0 to an account I didn't recognize. My stomach clenched even. I logged into the account linked to that transfer, and sure enough, it was a dummy account Lisa had set up under a false name. She'd been funneling money into it for months, probably planning her escape or some new scheme. I also remembered the way she'd been acting lately, more aggressive, dismissive, and downright bitchy when I brought up her late nights or her secretive behavior. I'd caught her in a few lies about where she'd been, but I never suspected it was this deep. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. She'd been planning this, hiding her real intentions and milking us for every penny she could get. The realization hit me hard. I'd been a complete idiot to trust her blindly. She'd been lying, cheating, and stealing right under my nose while I was working my ass off to keep everything afloat. Deciding I couldn't let her get away with it, I started making copies of everything: texts, bank statements, emails. I wanted solid proof. I knew I'd need it if I was going to confront her or take legal action. But part of me just wanted to explode, to scream at her, to make her feel as betrayed as I did. I'd never imagined I'd be in this position, married to someone who would betray me so completely. I felt humiliated, furious, and utterly heartbroken. The woman I thought I knew was a lie. I'd trusted her with everything, my heart, my money, my future, and she'd been plotting her own escape. That afternoon, I decided I had to talk to her again. I waited until she came home from work and then called her into the living room. She looked at me with that same bitchy smirk, like she knew she was getting away with something. I laid out all the evidence I'd collected, watching her face twist from her usual arrogance into something more defensive. She tried to deny everything at first, saying I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that Jason was just a friend. But I cut her off. I told her I knew about the money she'd been draining, about the affair, about the lies she'd told me. Her excuses came fast, blaming me for being too busy, saying I never paid attention, claiming she was just stressed and that Jason was helping her with work, but I wasn't buying it. I told her I'd had enough. I was done with the lies, the betrayal, the deception. I told her she was a liar and a thief, and I was sick of being played for a fool. I looked right into her eyes and told her she was done. I wasn't going to let her ruin me or take everything I'd worked for. I told her I was going to lawyer up, get a divorce, and take back what was mine. That was the moment I decided I'd fight her for everything: our house, our savings, the future I thought we'd share. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She started crying, claiming she loved me, that she wasn't really cheating, that all the money she took was for us, for our future. She begged, she lied, she tried to manipulate her way out of it, but I'd heard enough. I told her she could keep her lies, but I was done listening. I had enough evidence now to take her to court, and I was going to make sure she paid the price for all of it. That day marked the beginning of a war I never wanted, but I knew I had no choice. I was done being the victim. It was time to fight, to reclaim what was mine, and to finally expose her for who she really was. After that confrontation, my mind was a whirlwind of rage, heartbreak, and determination. I knew I couldn't just walk away from this. Lisa had crossed every line, and I needed to protect myself legally and financially. The first thing I did was contact a lawyer I found through a friend. I wanted to understand my rights, especially considering the money she'd been siphoning off and her plans to sue me for half our house. The lawyer, a sharp guy named Mark, listened carefully and then laid out the options. He told me that, based on the evidence I had, I was in a strong position to pursue a divorce and fight any claims she might try to make. The fact that she'd been draining our joint account without my knowledge was a clear breach of trust. Also, the large wire transfer to her fake account could be considered fraud, which would give us leverage in court. Mark warned me that Lisa was likely to retaliate with her own accusations, maybe claiming I was abusive or neglectful, typical tactics to distract from her own guilt. But I told him I had everything documented. I had copies of the texts, bank statements, emails, everything. The next step was to get a court order to freeze the remaining assets in our joint account. I didn't want her draining anything else or hiding money before the divorce proceedings even began. I also hired a private investigator to track her movements, just in case she tried to leave town or hide more money. The PI, a guy named Dave, confirmed that Lisa was meeting with Jason frequently, sometimes late at night, and that she was planning to move out of the city, probably to go stay with her sister or maybe even run somewhere else. I was furious that she thought she could keep lying and getting away with it. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude started to shift. She became more bitchy, more aggressive. She'd lash out at me when I brought up the divorce, calling me paranoid, controlling, and even accusing me of cheating myself. That was laughable, considering what I'd uncovered, but she'd also threatened to destroy me if I went through with it, claiming I'd ruin her reputation and that she'd fight me in court for everything she thought she deserved: half the house, the rest of the savings, and even custody of the dog, which I knew was just her way of trying to manipulate me. I didn't back down. I told her I wasn't interested in her threats. I was done being played. I'd already decided I was filing for divorce, and I was going to fight her for everything she'd taken. I knew she'd try to spin things, lie, and manipulate the system, but I had enough evidence to expose her. I also started documenting her behavior, her sneaky calls, her secret meetings, her changing stories. I wanted everything on record. One night she came home furious, yelling at me that I was ruining her life and that I'd never get away with it. She accused me of being paranoid, of spying on her, of trying to control her. I just looked at her, calm but firm, and told her she'd crossed the line. I told her I was done playing her game. I was going to take her to court and make sure she paid for all the lies and theft. Her face twisted in anger, then she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I knew that was her way of trying to intimidate me, but I wasn't scared anymore. I had the proof, and I was ready to fight. In the days that followed, I kept gathering evidence. I contacted a forensic accountant to review our joint account and find every penny she'd taken. The more I dug, the more I realized how deep her betrayal went. She wasn't just cheating. She was stealing from us, planning her escape, and trying to spin it all to save her own ass. I felt sick thinking about how she'd been living this double life, lying to my face while secretly draining our savings. Eventually, I filed for divorce. The legal process was brutal, but I knew I had the upper hand. Lisa tried to fight me at every turn. She claimed I was abusive, that I was trying to ruin her, but her lies didn't hold up. The court ordered her to return the money she'd stolen, and I managed to get a judge to freeze the house's title until the case was settled. I felt a strange mix of relief and dread, knowing this wasn't over yet. She was still out there, scheming, probably planning her next move. Looking back, I realize how I was. I always thought I knew Lisa, thought she was the woman I married, the woman I loved. Turns out she was just a master manipulator, a liar, a thief. This whole experience has changed me forever. I've learned the hard way that trust is fragile, and you can't ignore the red flags when they're right in front of you. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I do know I'll never let someone like her get away with this again. And if I can give anyone advice, it's this: trust your instincts, keep your eyes open, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right, even if it means exposing someone you once loved. The court process dragged on for months. Every time I thought I had a handle on things, Lisa would come up with some new lie or scheme to try and turn the tables. She hired her own lawyer, of course, and her lawyer's tactic was to paint me as the villain, claiming I was controlling, jealous, and paranoid. She even tried to say I was abusive just to distract from her own guilt. But I had the evidence: texts, bank statements, witness statements from the PI, and I made sure everything was documented. One of the most shocking moments came during a court hearing when Lisa suddenly claimed I had been cheating on her. She said I was unfaithful, that I was hiding a secret affair, and that's why she had to do what she did. I was stunned. I told the judge she was just trying to deflect, but deep down, I knew her accusations were just another manipulation tactic. She was desperate to muddy the waters, to make it seem like I was the one at fault. Honestly, it made me angrier, how she could stoop so low just to save her own skin. Meanwhile, I was working on rebuilding myself. I started therapy, trying to process everything: how I'd been betrayed, how I'd trusted someone who was just using me. It was a long road, but I needed to heal. I also started focusing on my career more, putting energy into my job, my friends, anything to keep from spiraling. I couldn't let her win, even if she was trying to drag me down with her lies and accusations. The financial battle was intense. I hired forensic accountants to dig into her accounts, and it turned out she'd stolen even more money than I initially thought. The judge ordered her to pay restitution for the stolen funds, and I managed to get a court ruling that she was responsible for all the legal fees, too. It felt good to see some justice, but the emotional toll was worse. I kept asking myself how someone I loved could turn into this manipulative, deceitful person. It felt like I was losing my mind at times, questioning everything I thought I knew about her. One day, I got a call from my lawyer. Lisa had filed for full custody of the dog, claiming I was unfit because I was emotionally unstable after everything. That was the final straw. I knew her game. She was trying to pit me against her to make me look bad in court. I countered with my own petition, showing that I'd been the one caring for the dog, taking it to the vet and giving it a stable home. The court saw through her bullshit, and I was awarded primary custody. That's small. Victory reminded me that I still had some control, even if she was trying to manipulate the system. Throughout all this, I had moments of pure rage: how she could betray me so completely, drain our savings, and then try to destroy me in court. But I also had moments of sadness, realizing that the woman I married was a stranger, someone I didn't recognize anymore. I kept thinking about the life we'd built, the trust I'd given her, and how she'd thrown it all away for some affair and greed. It was like waking up from a nightmare, knowing I'd never get those years back, but also knowing I had to move forward. In the end, the judge finalized the divorce, and Lisa was ordered to pay back every cent she stole plus damages. I walked out of that courtroom feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I was free from her, but the scars remained. I realized I'd been naive, thinking love and trust were enough to protect me. Now I knew that sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the worst. Looking back, I learned a lot, most importantly, to trust my instincts and not ignore the warning signs. If someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I also learned that revenge isn't about getting even. It's about protecting yourself, reclaiming your life, and making sure justice is served. I'm still healing, still putting the pieces back together, but I'm stronger now. And I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar finds the courage to fight for themselves. Because in the end, no one else is going to do it for you. After everything finally settled in court, I felt like I could finally breathe again, but the emotional scars ran deeper than I expected. The process of rebuilding my life wasn't as simple as getting a divorce and recovering some stolen money. I found myself questioning everything: trust, love, how I let someone so toxic into my life in the first place. The betrayal had cut me to the bone, and even though I was legally free, the pain lingered. I spent long nights staring at the ceiling, replaying all the signs I missed, all the times I should have seen through her lies. I also realized how much I'd let her manipulate me emotionally. She was good at it: smiling, crying, throwing tantrums, all to control the narrative. I've been so blinded by love and trust that I ignored the red flags. Now, I was trying to learn how to forgive myself for not seeing earlier, how to stop feeling like I'd failed. The therapy helped, but it was a slow process. I learned to set boundaries, to listen to my gut, and most importantly, to stop second-guessing myself. One thing that really hit me was how she had used money as a weapon. The more I looked into her schemes, the more I saw her greed and manipulation. She drained our joint account, lied about her whereabouts, and even tried to turn the court against me by claiming I was unfit. It was all about control, controlling the narrative, controlling the money, controlling my perception of her. It made me realize how dangerous it is to trust someone blindly. Money, sex, emotions, those are powerful tools, and she knew exactly how to use them against me. I also made a conscious decision to cut ties with her completely. No more calls, no more texts, no more trying to reason with someone who was determined to destroy me. I blocked her on everything: social, media, email, phone. It was hard but necessary. The only thing I wanted now was to move on and rebuild what I lost. I started focusing on myself, my career, my friends, and things I enjoyed. Little by little, I regained confidence and found joy in simple things I'd taken for granted before. But there was one thing I couldn't ignore: the anger. It simmered beneath the surface, a constant reminder of how badly I'd been betrayed. I knew I had to let it go eventually, but I also knew I'd never forget what she did. That anger fueled my determination to be better, smarter, more cautious in the future. I refused to be a victim forever. I was going to take this pain and turn it into strength. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't found those texts, those bank statements. Would I still be blind, still trusting her? Or would she have eventually taken everything? My money, my love, my dignity? The truth is, I don't regret fighting. I don't regret exposing her lies. It was necessary. But I do regret not seeing the signs sooner. That's the lesson I want to share with anyone reading. Don't ignore your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Trust your gut and don't be afraid to dig deeper. Because sometimes the truth is uglier than you want to admit, but facing it is the only way to truly move on. Now, I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I've started dating again, cautiously. I've learned to be more protective of myself, more aware of who I let into my world. And I've come to realize that I'm stronger than I thought, strong enough to survive this, to come out the other side better. I don't think I'll ever forget what happened, but I will use it as a lesson. A lesson to never ignore red flags, never let someone manipulate me with lies, and always trust my own judgment. Because in the end, you're the only one who truly knows your worth, and no betrayal can take that away unless you let it. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me, more than I ever expected. I used to be trusting, maybe even naive, thinking that love alone could protect me from the worst. Turns out that's not true. Love isn't enough when someone is determined to betray you, steal from you, and manipulate the truth. It's a harsh lesson, but one I had to learn the hard way. The biggest thing I've taken away from all of this is that no matter how much you love someone, you have to protect yourself first. Trust is built over time, but it can be shattered in an instant if you're not careful. I learned to listen to my instincts and pay attention to the red flags, things I'd ignored or brushed aside because I wanted to believe the best in her. That's what almost cost me everything. Now I know better. I also learned that revenge isn't about getting even. It's about justice, making sure that the person who wronged you pays for what they did and that you reclaim your life. I fought hard because I knew I deserved more than a life of lies, theft, and betrayal. I wanted to show her that her actions had consequences, and I wanted to rebuild my own sense of self-worth in the process. Most importantly, I've come to accept that some things are out of your control. You can't change someone who doesn't want to change. You can't force honesty or love where there's only greed and deceit. The only thing you can do is focus on your own healing and growth. That's what I've done. I've started to rebuild my confidence, my trust in myself, and my ability to spot the warning signs early. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, don't stay silent. Don't ignore the red flags, and don't let someone's lies or manipulations define you. You're stronger than you think, and you deserve a life built on honesty and respect. It's not easy, and the pain might linger for a while, but time heals. And so does standing up for yourself, even when it's the hardest thing you've ever done. In the end, I've learned that betrayal is a brutal teacher, but a teacher nonetheless. It's forced me to be better, smarter, more cautious. It's made me realize my own worth and the importance of protecting it. And I hope anyone who's reading this and facing their own heartbreak finds the courage to stand tall, fight for themselves, and never settle for less than they deserve. Because, in the grand scheme of things, that's what truly matters, knowing your worth and never letting anyone strip it away.